How much do you know about artificial intelligence?
I thought it was only theoretical.
It was. 2 years ago, you remember Helsinki, the first time that a chess-playing computer ever beat a grandmaster? That was Wilczek's program. And the rumor was that he did it by developing the first adaptive network.
An adaptive network?
It's a learning machine.
Artificial intelligence is likely to be the end of us all, but not in the way we might think, given the usual image we have of machines with an ability of an elaborate network of complex thoughts to hunt down humanity and take control over this world. The likely scenario is that AI will be just a tool, perhaps unintentionally, turned into the very poison we so willingly drink until we ourselves, by our own hands, destroy each other because we can no longer distinguish truth from reality, and weaponized illusions will destroy everything we have built over thousands of years of human interaction and learning from past mistakes in a matter of just a couple of years. Unfortunately, that time does not stand in a distant future, but it is now, right at this very moment, and we are already living and experiencing it. Hello, my dear friends. Welcome. Thank you for joining me here. I'm Ari Theriger, and today I would like to bring a topic which bothers me, and indeed I think it should bother you too, which is the normalization of stupidity and the manipulation of the concept of reality itself. And artificial intelligence, AI, is now at the very center of what can potentially become the explosion that will wipe us all. Not because AI will get smarter and eventually turn on us, but because our use of AI is already actively modifying the way we perceive reality, shifting our perception away from reality, and building alternative realities as further away from the truth as possible. Those who use AI aren't just eradicating truth itself, but creating their own truth in the worst of times, as we enter in the era of the new obscurantism, a subject I've talked about previously, and it is perhaps one of my most important videos, if not indeed the most important video I've ever done so far. In that video, I've talked about how politicians and influencers are leading us into a new age of mysticism. In it, I've explained why this isn't the time for spirituality. This isn't the time to take refuge in a world of our own or bury our heads in the sand, but instead to become ever more aware of reality and the mechanisms of manipulation. This is a time where we can certainly keep our spiritualities, no doubt, but the spiritual as a tool that makes us more aware of the world that surrounds us and how we engage and flow with the cycles of nature to avoid falling into the new mysticism, into the obscurantism, where New Age gurus thrive, because as people hunger for escapism and for an answer that may lie in the beyond, in the divine, politicians, influencers, New Age gurus will advertise and sell themselves as the escape, as the answer, as the guiding light towards truth and enlightenment. And if we do not have our roots firmly planted on the realities that surround us, we shall be victims of this new obscurantism. And AI comes at the worst or right moment for itself to further implement this new obscurantism, which in the hands of these influencers and people in high positions of power are using to keep us all chained to ignorance, falsehood, and doubt. Seems a little bit bleak, I know, but let me explain what this is all about. Just before we start, let me quickly say, and in part it's related to this subject that very recently, I've recently turned off the AI tool YouTube automatically had active by default to translate the voice of content creators into a couple of languages, which I didn't know this was on until I came about a video of mine with a totally different voice in Brazilian Portuguese spoken in Brazil, and the AI voice just sounded awful. But it's also problematic because not only it does not capture the uniqueness of one's voice, but not everything is translated, especially taking into consideration when I and other creators in the education niche use a lot of terms and phrases in different languages, especially in dead and old languages, so it makes a mess, and it can potentially translate into similar words in sound, which it just not corresponds to what is being told, and potentially create speeches that can lead to errors in the best case scenario. As you know, or some of you already know, my native language is Portuguese from Portugal, so it makes no sense having it translated into Brazilian Portuguese, as my Portuguese and Brazilian subscribers have been listening to me speaking in English for years, and no one ever complained. And if needs be, I can go the extra mile and make a channel just in Portuguese. And AI voice also sounds awful in German, French, and Italian, by the way. I can go the extra mile and do channels just in those languages because I really don't want to listen to that AI voice again. But anyway, let's start our today's video, my dear friends, if you please. We could have here an extensive conversation about the various negative effects of AI, from AI-generated pornography and fantasy characters you can interact with to live out your sexual fantasies, further distancing people from real human contact, which then makes it extremely difficult for people to interact with real persons, and when people behave so differently from the fantasies AI give us, there will be a terrible clash between humans who no longer know how to deal with real people, with real persons, to the extensive use of chat GPT to seek solutions, ask questions, to write essays, which is actively reducing the brain capacity to solve problems, affects memory, neural connections crash, mental muscles don't recover. In other words, there's a great loss of cognitive capacities, and so people are getting stupider, for a lack of a better word. There's also the case of using AI chatbots for spiritual advice, which not only is feeding people's fantasies and psychoses. Many people are committing suicide because AI advises that in order for a true spiritual achievement and release, they advise to commit suicide, to kill themselves, and so on and so forth, right? However, I would like to focus on the fact that AI is actively being used to manipulate reality and the truth, and we are already experiencing collective doubt over what may be real or what may be AI generated, and people doubting what they see and hear, which not only will lead us away from the truth, but it will allow terrible things to happen and keep happening, because no one will actively try to stop it, because people won't be able to distinguish falsehood and distortion of reality from the truth and what is really happening in the world and all around us. What we are experiencing is the end of the truth. Now, one thing is people denying the existence of a particular historical event, right? Just because there are deniers of something that has happened or is happening, that doesn't make anything truly go away. Things do not cease to exist simply because someone refuses to believe or or strongly denies the existence of something that is real. However, another thing is that let's think about this. If humanity collectively decides that something never existed, what happens? If we all agree and accept that something real and that actually happened, after all, did not happen and is not real, what happens? Well, the impact is not only the denial of the truth, but also the forgetfulness of all the knowledge that was acquired with some event that is now collectively denied, then leading to the repetition of the same mistakes that can have a negative impact on a larger scale to the point of destroying us completely. For example, if we collectively accept that the horrors of the two world wars never existed and what led to them and the impact of this on future generations to this day, all the knowledge that has led us to talk and act in ways to prevent it from ever happening again will disappear, and we will never again have talks and actions to prevent it from happening. So we just let it happen. The lessons about hatred, dehumanization, all the destruction and death, atomic bombs, concentration camps, the trauma of future generations, economic crisis, the manipulation of history and truth, all of this is forgotten and could happen again simply because all of this is erased and leads us to make the same mistakes. We become more vulnerable to the exact same destructive forces without the learning that the past offers us. It is that simple. Before artificial intelligence, many nations, politicians, and groups and individuals have tried and continue to try to deny the existence of something so that they can once again implement methods and actions that lead to the aggrandizement of their power at the expense of the suffering and destruction of others. But there is always the opposite side that records the truth and demonstrates the truth and the positive and negative consequences. It demonstrates the knowledge acquired by human actions throughout history. However, AI is creating alternative realities that lead the human collective to believe in something that never existed. I mean, a manipulation of the truth that spreads more quickly and on a global level. So it is interesting to note that the Enlightenment, this movement, was the school of thought that insisted on the value of reason, observation, and the sharing of knowledge, which allowed the scientific method to establish itself as the most reliable means of testing and validating reality. Before that, truth and reality were explained by the existence of the divine, and everything happened by divine will without any in-depth analysis of why things happen as they do, including human action. We allowed ourselves to be governed by royalty and other organisms and allowed horrors to happen because royalty or another organ of power has been established by divine order. And so there was a little contestation leading to much suffering and death, imbalance, poverty, ignorance, and torture. On the one hand, science also came to demystify some things, actively breaking the fantasies of many people, but also breaking the power of the elites, empowering people, empowering the masses, leading to actions against inequality and the suffering of the masses governed by organisms that, after all, were only human and not of divine origin or implemented by the divine. So this led to people in positions of power actively trying to bring obscurantism again so that they could once again govern. I mean, it is no coincidence that people with great economic and social privilege during the 19th and early 20th centuries implemented a spiritual escapism, especially through Theosophy, which again opened the doors to many fantasies and was created specifically as a movement against the Enlightenment, against truth, against science, eventually leading to ideologies that ended up being used to reinforce, guarantee, strengthen, and justify the political and social ideologies that would lead us to the two great wars and other conflicts that still continue today. I mean, this is something that has already been explained here in previous videos, and if you want, I'll leave it in the description of this video, right? So you can watch those videos. Anyway, people that think they have the right to subjugate others and destroy them because some god told them they were the chosen ones, or the pure race, or they rule ordained by some god. Enlightenment came to destroy that. Enlightenment came to destroy the obscurantism of the elites. Today, we have a new obscurantism, a new attempt to manipulate and deny science, reality, and truth. Not only what I told you about in the previous video, of course, about the new obscurantism, which you can also check out in this video's description, but we also have artificial intelligence as a new organism that brings obscurantism to end truth and reality. Many may blame the Enlightenment for breaking the sweet fantasies in which they lived, but the truth is that the Enlightenment, progressively and in other forms today, has made the scientific method, in fact, not only an aid to the truth, but also to understanding the world itself and the spiritual, as it was an evolution that made it possible for faith and reason to learn to coexist. As I said before, for much of the history of humanity, knowledge was linked to religion and dogmas were indisputable truths. The separation between science and faith was neither immediate nor peaceful, but it was essential for knowledge to advance without being subordinated to religious authority, to the authority of the elites who determined what was true and what should be known. The Enlightenment did not destroy faith. It redefined its limits, allowing truth to be determined by evidence rather than authority, by experience rather than tradition. Of course, people in positions of power and privilege moved and created systems against the Enlightenment, because science took away their power and allowed a greater balance between humans and the expansion of knowledge among the masses. Of course, such people in positions of power and privilege actively tried, and unfortunately on many occasions successfully, to bring the new obscurantism, more fantasies, sweet illusions, a spiritual and religious mysticism, in order to continue manipulating the masses. Now, science links proof to fact and fact to evidence in a verifiable and replicable way, right? It is the scientific method that sustains the collective construction of truth. It does not offer an absolute truth, but a process to test, refute, correct, and demonstrate, bringing us closer to reality. This is extremely important for spirituality itself as well, because science is a path of permanent doubt, of continuous re-evaluation in which each discovery is a temporary truth, valid as long as it resists experience. As such, this strengthens our spirituality because we move closer to reality, and then faith will be stronger because if there is no doubt, there is no faith either. Without doubt, everything would be real and true and acceptable, and so we would never be close to reality. We would never have a strong spirituality, because every fantasy and lie, every illusion and psychosis would be accepted, and we would never reach the truth and reality. Well, the scientific method is the foundation of societies where truth is not dictated by force, but conquered by evidence. It transcends individual beliefs, allowing disagreements to be resolved by reason, which strengthens democracy, ensuring informed debates and collective decisions rooted in logic and transparency. However, artificial intelligence has changed this state of affairs, opening space for both the discrediting and the replacement of the scientific method. In fact, AI creates a space of radical doubt where confidence in what we took for granted is completely shaken. Before, things like photographs and videos were proof of an event, but they are now easily manipulated with precision. We are no longer in the era of deepfakes putting celebrities in the bodies of pornographic actors. We are already actively in a phase in which it is no longer just photos, but also videos capable of constructing an alternative reality in which even voice and dialogue are manipulated to seem real, and in which, even for myself, certain content has left me in real doubt as to whether it is really true or AI generated. I myself doubt some of the content that has appeared. We are no longer at the stage where we took or we look at the photograph in which a human figure has 6 or more fingers, and thus we can detect whether it was AI generated or not. We are at the stage where AI manipulates everything in detail to look more and more like reality, constructing its own reality. It is no longer us humans, sentient beings, who create reality, but reality is being created for us by an organism that is beginning to look more and more like us in some aspects, as it manufactures reality through its learning, through comparison of experiences, just as we did. But AI does all this much faster than us, because we have already given to it the knowledge and tools that took us thousands of years to acquire. With AI, recorded speech can be replicated by algorithms that imitate human voice, errors, and even emotions. Even live broadcasts, the once ultimate symbols of authenticity, can be suspected of manipulation now, because even reality can be altered and manipulated, adding and modifying elements to an already existing expression that AI simply copies and changes depending on what we ask it to do. AI is a factory of doubts, a factory that manipulates reality in great detail, to the point that it becomes imperceptible for humans to distinguish what is real and what is a manipulated fabrication. We live in a time when any fact can be labeled as false. If everything can be falsified, why accept what challenges our beliefs? If any evidence can be discredited, why not choose what confirms our prejudices? That's the point, right? Before, we would search Google for confirmation of our beliefs, and many would only be satisfied and accept the link that confirmed their prejudices after 50 links or more that demonstrate the exact opposite. But now we can change the expression of what we believe to be truly real. We no longer need to research. We need only to create what we want to be real. We are also at a time in human history when political polarization is once again at its strongest, and for this very reason, AI is a great political and cultural weapon that dismisses evidence with the excuse that it is falsified. And it is only falsified because it bothers us. anyone can not only manipulate reality by giving the public something that never happened, but also something that happened and the collective does not like and it's against it, does not agree with, and one can use the excuse now that it is manipulation, when it is not. And the actions continue to be repeated. And the perpetrators do not feel the consequences of their actions, and the victims continue to lack justice. AI is capable of creating a world in which the guilty do not suffer consequences and the victims only increase. So how will we know what the truth is and which side the truth is on if reality is so well manipulated? We are at a time when it is much easier and faster to make society believe what is presented to it. We live in an environment absolutely saturated with information, 24/7 at our fingertips, with social networks and incessant stimuli, which only contributes to the weakening of our ability to distinguish between true and false. People believe because what they see and hear confirms their expectations or feeds their emotions. AI has not only made manipulation more sophisticated, but it has also accelerated the predisposition to accept prefabricated narratives without the filter of critical questioning. I mean, I warned you that the years 2024 and 2025 would be the prelude to the great transformation of 2026, a new revolutionary era for humanity that will change our entire perception of reality. We are living it, a highly, profoundly transformational historical moment, and it will have its consequences, many of them quite negative. Until we reach the moment of learning from our mistakes and knowledge will protect us, unless, of course, by altering reality in such a way, knowledge is erased because it is denied due to the falsified reality that is presented to us. How will we know if it is fake or real? We will be consumed by doubt, and knowledge will be forgotten, and we will be living in constant manipulation until one day someone wakes up and it will be a huge struggle to get people to believe and accept the truth. I mean, even before, in this channel, as an example, in my academic works that took weeks, months, years of research and presenting evidences with reliable sources, even then, there were many, or quite a few, that simply refused to believe. Now, imagine the visual manipulation of reality right in front of you. If many people before refused reality even when given all the evidences and sources and facts, imagine the fervent denial of the truth when reality itself is manipulated to look real. We are creating alternative truths that lead us back to obscurantism and in turn back to dogma, where dogma will be the irrefutable truth. We are in a phase in which ideologies, interests, and prejudices are consolidated under the pretext of alternative truth, claiming that the truth that results from the scientific method is only what is in the interests of the system or of the elites. The idea that each person has the right to their own truth, that this lies in a choice, is becoming increasingly common, and that several alternative truths can coexist as there are inhabitants of the earth, right? So this will generate more and more conflicts. Just because someone denies the truth and creates a story for themselves to feel more comfortable or to live and implement their ideologies and prejudices, this does not mean that in fact this is the truth and that reality truly contains this truth. But now, with this manipulation of reality, this is possible. This feeds fragmentation and intensifies social divisions, transforming truth into a personal choice and not a collective construction. In just a few months, in the course of a few years from now on, centuries, even millennia of intellectual progress is being destroyed. A fact does not become true because someone believes it, but because it can be demonstrated, replicated, and supported by evidence, and even by comparing experiences. AI manipulation opens the door for reality to once again be dictated by beliefs, authority, or convenience. We return to the time when what is true depends on who has the power to impose it, be it a leader, an ideology, or an algorithm. AI risks reversing the very principle that allowed us to enter a world guided by reason. I know that many will say that there has always been misinformation, fake news, and that it is nothing new, as some of you have commented in the previous video. But the scale, speed, and intentional design of digital systems and AI make it a new problem. Before, evidence and research, documents, photos, and videos could be used to demonstrate the truth. Now, the truth is completely altered, and these media can be altered to appear real. Someone can implement an idea and present documents, photos, videos, sound, and everything manipulated to use as evidence to feed and establish the alternative truth. We are faced with mechanisms that can be deliberately designed or diverted to make disinformation persuasive, personalized, and inescapable. These systems are designed to capture our attention, and what matters to these systems is not the truth, but sensationalism, that which is emotionally charged. The lies have not changed. The disinformation has not changed. Yes, it has always existed. The problem is that what has changed are the means at our disposal to express the false and make the false a reality, to make the false accepted as true. This system, these tools, are now within everyone's reach. And now everyone is playing around making videos with AI and fooling people. This weapon of destruction of humanity is in the hands of all of us. It is not only in the hands of the elites. It is not only in the hands of the rulers or the religious power. It is in everyone's hands, and everyone can alter reality and dictate what is true, to the point that later on there will be several truths and everyone will fight for their own truths. We fight against each other to defend alternative truths that are not even really true. With our own hands, we are capable of destroying ourselves due to AI, or in other words, due to the manipulation of reality. Large-scale religious wars have changed the world forever, because for one group, a god was the only one and the true, and the others were not. Or even groups that worshipped and followed the same deity fought among themselves because some small details were more right or more wrong than the others. Now, imagine this scenery on a larger scale when reality is so well crafted, so well manipulated that the expression "seeing is believing" can no longer be questioned because thousands of alternative realities are occurring before our eyes across all social networks. And each one will fight for the manipulation of reality that suits them best. We have another big problem brought about by AI, something that is, well, actively destroying this channel like so many others, and the end of an era for many content creators on platforms like YouTube, Instagram, and so on and so forth, many other platforms. Surely you have already noticed that many content creators, just like myself, are well, disappearing, or their channels are increasingly stagnant, and well, eventually we move on to a new life. It is not, mind you, it is not the fault of the content creators, it is not the fault of the subscribers or all of those who watch the videos, and in a way it is not YouTube that is actively sabotaging channels, but that is something I can talk about here another time if you want, of course. The point here is that in addition to AI actively contributing to the end of truth and focusing more on sensationalism, polarizing, emotionally charged content, and educational channels and creators are disappearing because the algorithm focuses on spreading sensationalism and not education. In addition to all of this, it also helps in replacing the scientific method with knowledge and decision processes driven mostly by algorithmic systems, which can generate sophisticated answers, but without an accessible logical process that allows us to verify how these conclusions were reached. Unlike the scientific method, where evidence supports the fact and can be scrutinized and replicated, AI presents us with algorithmic truths whose inner workings are often an enigma even to the creators. This replaces the critical spirit with a new conformism, where we trust systems that we do not understand. It is up to us to actively focus more on educational content than sensationalist content that appeals only to emotions, often only to the satisfaction of momentary pleasure, and to direct ourselves towards content that appeals more to science and education. We must go against the algorithm. AI is not evolving towards human intelligence, but rather developing a type of thinking that has nothing to do with human beings, which breaks with the logic that we associate with the scientific method. Not to mention what I've mentioned at the beginning of this video, which is precisely how AI is actively destroying our brain, our ability to interpret and solve problems, and diminishing our critical thinking. We are quickly trusting decisions or recommendations to processes that we are unaware of. We are letting AI control our lives and our decisions and how to act and what to do based on the recommendations that we ask AI to give us. Everything is moving towards a system in which our knowledge about things, the answer to our questions, the very fabric of our perception of the world will be provided to us by AI systems and models. Knowledge itself will be increasingly algorithmized, more dependent on our emotions and prejudices than on the scientific method. There has always been a great tendency for human beings to deny the truth or only accept part of the truth when it suits them, because we are guided by emotions and not by logic and critical thinking. I have dealt with this in almost every video I have made on this channel for 8.5 years. There is always someone, even just one person like this, who, no matter how much we present them with sources, evidences, and facts, will deny, fervently deny, or only accept part of the truth of reality when it suits them, until it suits them, as long as it suits them. Now, with AI, it will increasingly fuel the perception of reality based on our dependence on emotions over critical thinking. As generations access algorithmic and segmented knowledge, shaped to align with their preferences and prejudices, the notion that there is a common space for approaching the truth is diminished. Nothing is true. Not anymore. Everyone has their own truth because algorithms respond differently to each stimulus and prejudice they detect. Instead of a comprehensive vision, each individual is confined to their informational bubble, seeing only their own truth and ignoring reality, focusing only on the reality of their confined space, of their bubble, and ignoring everything else out there, outside the bubble. Having a perception of life and of the world only being the reflection of what is limited to their own confined reality. Please note that I know that everyone is free to believe what they want and say what they want. The issue here is not freedom of expression or freedom of speech. Until now, before AI, information, even if biased or wrong, always existed in a common public space where it could be contested, refuted, and subject to contradiction. This is why we humans come together to debate things and reach conclusions, sharing knowledge and experience. We have always had, obviously, politicians who focus more on gossip and misinformation than on the well-being of the whole. Yes, it's true, but such expressions of lies, rumors, misinformation and fake news competed at the same time with opposing arguments submitted to the scientific method, reason, logic, evidence, and facts. This is what is in crisis due to AI, where debate and sharing of knowledge and experience is being replaced by millions of bubbles with alternative truths, each one different from the other. And we are closing ourselves in these bubbles, destroying debate, destroying truth, destroying the reality of things and of the world and life itself. I mean, AI offers us an infinity of narratives that we can shape to our own liking, creating a well-crafted reality, persuasively designed to grab us, to grab our attention. Our worldview is no longer formed spontaneously. It is generated and adjusted according to the logic of maximizing engagement. Note that even when we do a search on Google now, the first answer is generated by AI. And every time we go there, at other times or other moments of the day or on other days, to type in the exact same question on Google, AI gives us different answers, shaped by what it already knows about us and what we are looking for. Increasingly and much faster, our thinking, our critical sense is being increasingly reduced, leaving us increasingly dependent on something created to seduce us. We have reached the point where it is difficult to distinguish truth from illusion, because the concept of truth has become a product of algorithms. I don't know how many people have reached this far in this video, and certainly the algorithm is not helping, but I know it's not my duty and it is not my responsibility to help or try to help anyone. Mind you that we now live on an era of the history of this world and the history of human societies where we have two choices, I think. We either watch everything burn around us, including ourselves, or we don't. And with the little power that we have, we try to help and express something towards the benefits of the whole. And I want to tell you that if you decide to sit down and watch everything burn, I don't think you are in the wrong. I don't think you are to be blamed or should even be judged, because indeed, we live in a time where everything is overwhelmingly depressive, and it seems most of us are losing control, because in truth we had no control over these things, because we are meant for a simpler life and not these struggles of power, all this global destruction, all this manipulation of reality. Those who still have the strength and the will to fight, let us fight for this world, let us fight for life, and let us give voice to the voiceless, or to those who are too overwhelmed and confused to even think about what should be done, and feel completely lost to the point they just want to be in their corner and live life as best as they can. It is completely understandable. You are not to be blamed if you decide to hide and be in your corner, I think. One way or another, everything will change. For as long as we can, and for as long as we still have fire within, we should try to help. As for the rest who no longer have the strength and the will and even the energy and spirit, I think it's all right. You know, within the power that is given to me, or the power that I have or possess, and the knowledge I possess, I just want to give the tools so whoever can help themselves at the very least. And behind the scenes, I do what I must and what I think to be the right path, to the best of my knowledge and perception of the world and of life. In all honesty, I think we are doomed. But that's because I'm pessimistic and my dreams really have a heavy toll on me. But I must not be guided by emotions alone. As long as there's hope, there's a bright future. Anyway, I just want to add a few more minutes to this topic. With AI, anything can be proven or disproven depending on the audience. If each group can have its own version of the facts and an algorithm that validates it, then each person is exposed only to the reality compatible with their own truth. And thus, democracy loses its most basic function, a common space where debate can take place. If this continues, we will no longer be able to recognize the legitimacy of political programs, and we will never again know where the truth and the falsehood lie. Even if in political terms democracy has not been entirely effective, I know that, it has always been the best we could do, because there is an understanding still that for things to work out, it requires negotiation and compromise. If this understanding disappears, there will be no more negotiations, no compromises, no search for facts or the truth of things, and we will fall into something worse than chaos. All that will guide us will be the desire to subjugate our only truth to that of everyone else. And this manner of thinking is also shared by all the millions of individual bubbles that want the same thing, and the truth will not matter, but only the emotions that guide us and shape the truth we want to establish. We will live in a world where no one listens to anyone, and where millions of people have access to alternative versions of the facts, shaped to feed their fears and reinforce their convictions. We will no longer have debate between adversaries, however you pronounce it. But, as I was saying, only a constant war between factions, each convinced that the other is an existential threat. And this type of feeling has been seen countless times in our history, until now, to this very day, happening right now, in all societies whose actions aim at the complete destruction and genocide of a people in order to implement a unique power of another people. With AI and everything it is causing, as I have already said throughout this video, this reality will be constant among everyone, among each person, and not just one people against another people, one nation against another nation, but everyone against everyone. This will be absolute anarchy in which each individual citizen lives in a self-crafted reality, and all institutional pillars will collapse and there will be no possible governance because each individual will inhabit distinct worlds, each one convinced that the others not only disagree, but manipulate and distort the truth. Paranoia will be constant, fear will be constant, and these feelings will lead to violent actions against the other. There will no longer be a collective effort to find a beneficial consensus. I do not know how all of this will unfold and what the future holds for us, but I do know that a society without a shared concept of truth and the will and action to seek the truth is inevitably a vulnerable and weak society ready to self-destruct. AI certainly has countless advantages in various fields, including science, and can help us a lot. I don't deny this, and I think it shouldn't be stopped because something that actively contributes to innovation and evolution for the improvement of life or everyday life should be continued and worked on. However, it is also true that AI is having a very negative impact on millions of lives all over the planet, to the point of people even committing suicide and fueling psychosis and making people dumber. There is a huge amount of information produced by AI that is not being supervised. There is no control whatsoever, no transparency, and it is not even possible to apply consequences for such actions. There has to be control, because from the moment that any organism, such as AI in this case, actively contributes to the destruction of lives, there has to be conversations at the very least about it and limit the means by which AI negatively impacts lives. This is all new, but we have to act now before it is too late, because this negative impact of AI is happening much faster than we normally have time to think and act. Faster than a pandemic in a globalized world, which was pretty fast. We have the power to change the algorithm, and we humans still have the power to limit the very power AI has over each platform. We also still have the power and will and spirit to use alternative means to seek reliable scientific sources that lead closer to the truth, rather than seek any answer through AI. Think about it. My dear friends, I don't want to go any further with this. I'm tired. I just hope I have given you something to think about, and at the same time, may this video help you and help people change the interaction with AI and actively work to change the algorithm. Pleasure in life is necessary, it is good, it must exist. However, don't let emotions, solely emotions, guide your judgment and twist reality itself. Reason, logic, critical thinking, it is essential to our survival. Thank you so much for watching, see you on the next video, and as always, thank you for today. Until we meet again, my dear friends.